They started leaving before the fourth quarter even felt like it belonged to the Eagles. And honestly, you could see why. It wasn't a single bad play. It was the feeling of déjà vu. A team that looked last year like a machine now stumbling through scenes it used to win. You expect hiccups in November. You don't expect your signature play, the one that used to feel automatic, to be the play that embarrasses you. That moment, when the Tush push went wrong and the Bears recovered a fumble at the 12, felt less like a fluke and more like a flashing "something is broken" sign. Let's set the scene. It's 3rd and 1 at the 12. Jalen Hurts lines up, the offense leans into what worked so often last season, and the plan is simple and violent. Push forward, convert, keep the clock, tilt field position. Instead, Nahshon Wright comes around the edge, strips the ball, and the Eagles are staring at another turnover. The stadium goes from grumble to movement as pockets of fans head for exits. It's not just that the play failed, it's that the play failing violated a trust. The team's trust with its fans and the fans' trust with the team's identity. If you watch the box score, it looks like an ordinary slip, a 24-15 loss on a Friday night. But the truth is in the texture of the game. 2 first downs before halftime. 9 minutes of possession in the first half, a running game that didn't exist against a front that bullied them. The Bears ran for 142 yards in the first half, 6.5 yards a pop, and by the end they'd piled up 281. That's not a referee's trick. That's schematic failure and physical mismatch. You'll hear coaches blame matchups. Players will talk about execution. A.J. Brown used one word that stood out: execution. That's not a headline grabber. It's a lens. Good teams execute their normal plays even when the opponent knows they're coming. Great teams adapt in real time. The Eagles? Too often lately, they look stuck trying to execute a script written in a different season. It's tempting to point the finger at Kevin Patullo. Fans and media have thrown around the idea that Nick Sirianni should take over play calling. Sirianni's answer, not changing the play caller, sounds calm, maybe stubborn. But the issue isn't a single busted snap or a single coordinator. It's a composite. Play designs that aren't creating consistent advantages, a rushing attack that's limping after a heavy usage season, and a defense that was supposed to be elite but now has soft moments at the worst times. Saquon Barkley's numbers this year read like a cautionary footnote for heavy usage backs. You can feel the wear. Fewer explosive runs, less consistent burst. That's partly the man, partly the scheme, partly the protective work around him. When your lead back isn't producing the same way, everything else becomes harder. 3rd and short conversions, clock management, play action windows for Hurts to exploit. The offense becomes a shorter playlist of options, and when teams stack the box, those shortened options look predictable and, yes, easier to stop. Then there's the defense. Last season's unit led the league in yards allowed. This year they've dropped into the 20s. It's not that the personnel suddenly forgot how to tackle, it's that the margins have narrowed. The secondary looks rusty at structural moments. The front can push, but doesn't always finish. When you fail to finish sacks, when tackling looks half-hearted at the line of scrimmage, you invite games where your offense must score in half the time you used to need. What hurts most in public life is perception. The Eagles are 8-4, a record most franchises would kill for. But Philly is not most franchises. Expectations are Everest level, and with that comes a shorter fuse. Fans remember last year's efficiency, last year's postseason run, the way a 2-man shove at the goal line could feel unstoppable. Now every incompletion is a headline and every penalty is a betrayal. So when whole sections stand and leave, it's not just fatigue. It's a collapse of patience that builds after a stack of little slights. Is this fixable? Yes, but not with theater. You don't call a timeout for drama and expect a miracle. You fix micro problems. You start with clarity, simpler play calling in short yardage, better communication on blocking assignments, and a commitment to finish at the line on defense. If the offense is sputtering, you game plan to protect hurts and hide weaknesses. Quicker reads, more pre-snap motion, plays that force a single defender into a choice. If the run game is lagging, you lean into spacing and get Barkley and James Cook, if he's in the mix, a cleaner lane. There's also an organizational choice to make. Does Sirianni keep handing play calling to Patullo and hope for incremental fixes? Or does he step in and reshuffle the script? That's not drama, it's governance. The head coach's job is partly tactical and partly cultural. When the team's culture tips toward anxiety instead of confidence, the head coach has to decide which lever to pull: personnel, scheme, or leadership presence to steady the ship. The longer-term worry is psychological. Teams that lose the locker room's quiet confidence tend to fumble not just the ball, but the moments that define seasons: third downs with the clock, field goal decisions, 2-minute drills. The image of fans leaving early is tiny compared to that gap. It's just the most visible symptom. Inside the building, players will be asking each other whether the team still believes the same way it did at the start of the year. Belief is not guaranteed. It's earned every day in practice, film room, and tiny conversations on the bench. And yet, reality must be stated plainly. The Eagles are almost certainly making the playoffs. Talent and roster construction don't vaporize overnight. Hurts is elite. Brown and Devonta Smith are top-tier playmakers, and the defensive core still has Pro Bowl-level pieces. What this game underlines is the difference between making the playoffs and being a team that can win in January. Right now, Philly looks like a team that can get there, but might not be primed to advance far unless corrections happen fast. So what should fans watch for in the next 2 weeks? First, clear, audible signs that the offense has simplified in short yardage and third down scenarios. If you still see the same hesitation on the goal line, that's a red flag. Second, defensive finishing: sacks instead of pressures, tackles for no gain instead of forced 2-yard gains. Third, Barkley's snap count and effectiveness. If he shows signs of pop returning, that's a positive leading indicator. The story of this Eagles team in 2025 isn't written yet. There's time to right the ship. The more painful truth is this: the margin between a memorable playoff run and an early exit is smaller than the margin between last year and this one. Talent gives you a head start, but discipline, clarity, and a willingness to change what isn't working are the things that turn talent into a trophy. For now, the image that lingers is simple and sharp: sections of a stadium filing out early, not because the result was inevitable, but because the product on the field felt inexplicably hollow. Fans don't leave because they hate. They leave because they're tired of being promised something that didn't arrive. If the Eagles want those fans back in full and loud come January, they have to turn this frustration into fuel, fast, methodically, and without theatrics. The clock is running. The playbook needs to match it. They came to see a champion, but they left early, and who could blame them? The Eagles looked like a team still trapped in last season's highlight reel, while the Bears turned Black Friday into a blueprint for how to beat Philly: run the ball, control the clock, and punch the vaunted offense in the mouth. Chicago left Lincoln Financial Field with a 24-15 win that felt less like an upset and more like a correction. Reuters: from the first whistle, it was obvious the Bears wanted to make this a physical game. Chicago rushed for 281 yards, steamrolled the line of scrimmage, and handed the Eagles a diet of long, exhausting drives they could not answer. DeAndre Swift and Kyle Monangai each finished with 100-yard games, the first time the Bears had two backs eclipse that mark since 1985.